Hello.
Hello, hello. Sweet. And the parrot says, "Sim down."
Sound is there.
Wrong headset. No, now I have audio. Hello, everyone. I can talk. I can talk and be heard. We're good to go. I got
Yeah,
birds on me.
which of us can be heard? And birds.
So many
Always
birds.
birds.
So many birds. This is
Birds,
Mary
birds,
and this is
birds.
Pippin. Hey, guys. I got my little birds on me.
You have a crazy delay on that sound.
Do I?
Oh no, wait a second. Never mind. I'm listening to the Discord, not the stream. The stream is always delayed compared to the
Yeah.
Discord. I'll switch back.
Cool. So yeah, we're good to go. I got everybody set up. I got
Yep.
birds on me.
Excellent. Well, you might as well tweet that we're live.
I might as well, except I have birds on my arm.
Peter has stepped away. I'll
This
do a
is my
tweet.
typing arm.
I have less people that follow my Twitter, but I'll do a
You
tweet.
know, guys, I'll just retweet you because I can do that with one arm. Doing OBS is made more difficult by having Linnies on your shoulder. I've found. Oh, I think there's a third one coming. Yes. Hi. This is Nutmeg. Nutmeg was in the stream a lot last time because she really wanted snuggles. Where are you going? You gonna go walk around on the desk? There she goes. Sweet. Hey Dan, how's it going? I see you are managing the chat.
I should just do the
Just the whole channel. I was joking to Layne earlier. I was saying this is a real behind the scenes shot because this is literally, I don't have my green screen set up, so you can see like the bird cage and Layne's machine behind me and all the
okay.
junk of our office and bird room.
I has tweeted.
Sweet. I'm gonna retweet that.
Peter will be right back, but we can
chat.
begin chat without him. There's a few folks checking out the stream.
Yeah. I'm just trying to find your tweet here.
The boys have just decided, well, as long as you're sitting here quietly,
Yep.
you will be a place for us to hang out.
This is super cute right now, and in about 10 minutes it's gonna get real painful as my arm gets sore. But I will
You'll just
not
have to do the
have the
thing where
heart to
you
move them.
slowly lower your arm and they'll climb further up.
Oh, you want scritchings. This bird wants some scritchings.
My goodness, so many birds.
I got all the birds on me. This is all my birds. I don't have more birds than this. Just 3, which is a lot of
Literally
bird.
all the birds.
It's still a lot of bird. Aw. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but the boys are grinding their beaks. They're very content right now.
Hold it up close to the microphone.
There's a good bird. Getting all them snuggles. You came for Q&A, but you got bird snuggles.
I'm not sure if anybody is here for Q&A yet.
Yeah.
I think it's just Peter and us and Dan, maybe 1 or 2 other
Checking
people.
stuff out. There's a way on mobile to see who's in the chat, but I always forget what it is. And also I can't reach it right now because I have many birds.
That is okay.
So many birds. There you go, Bruno.
And we shall see how much interest there is here. You're recording this, right?
I am not, but I can.
I
I mean,
it's up to you.
I think it's being recorded on my YouTube page, so.
It's being recorded on your Twitch.
Yeah.
Because that's automatic.
I found you
but
can
I don't
download
remember
that.
what you.
So.
Oh, okay. So it's fine then.
Yeah.
So anybody in the chat have a question about the campaign so far? If not,
We'll just
we're just going to start
talk about stuff.
just start shooting the shit until someone wanders in. Peter is going to do a be back shortly.
Sweet. Happy Goblinization Day, everybody.
Yeah. I don't know if people saw your awesome photos
I hope so. They were fun. I really enjoyed doing that photo shoot.
That we took in a hurry.
Outside, while there was roofers on the other side of the building. We didn't want them to come over the roof and be like, what the hell? Why is there a sword? Why does that person have a sword?
People here for the Q&A and the bird snuggles.
Hey, look at these cute beans. They're so cute.
They're like extra snuggly today.
They really are. Oh, look at him grinding his little beak.
Hi, everybody.
That's Pippin in front and Mary behind him. Pippin really likes to snuggle.
I have a question. We have a question about the basic story so far. Yeah, I can do a pretty quick synopsis since we've only had 2 full episodes. They're all broken into parts. We introduced our characters and had them all meet up. Basically, Ugna and Tromlin have longtime friends hanging out in the town of Mud Hollow. Got the mob basically come up to them and demand that they do a job for them or else. It turns out that Ugna, who is a pit fighter and a wrestler, was contracted by the mob to throw a fight by the Thieves Guild.
I forgot.
And then failed to throw the fight because it's hard to remember stuff sometimes.
I forgot that.
And the result was that Ugna now owes the mob an awful lot of money because they clearly wagered heavily on that fight. And so the adventure started off with a turtle known as Quorm Leatherback, who works for the mob, the Thieves Guild in Mud Hollow, coming and telling the group that they need to go and stop a gang war in the town of Stormhill. And so the first adventure set all that up, got the group gathered. Because obviously stopping a gang war requires a certain amount of muscle, a certain amount of assistance. Tromlin and Ugna enlisted the help of Tromlin's newly unestranged grandfather, or newly discovered grandfather, or grand something.
Funkle.
Grand relative.
Very nice old
Grand
man.
Funkle.
Grand Funkle
is the term that.
Indeed. And so that's a warlocked system, and then they enlisted the help of a couple of random trash creatures, which is the Kobold Ranger and the Genasi
our
Swamp
Kobold
Druid.
Ranger was in the floorboards listening to our conversation, so it was very easy to find him.
It's a good way to hire somebody. Oh my goodness! There's like this is just preen stream.
This is bird o'clock.
Yeah.
Bird o'clock is happening.
Clearly the birds are like, this is a good time for us to take over. So just to continue our synopsis so far, the Kobold had recently connected with this druid who has just decided for the first time after living alone in the swamp for an extremely long time that has decided to come out and start adventuring. And so the Kobold hooked up the group with a druid for extra support, and they all trucked off with this really obnoxious merchant in tow who's been sent with them to assist them making contact with the local Thieves Guild.
I think he's very nice. He's a very nice guy.
Yep. He doesn't like any of you.
No.
And
not
his
even
name
slightly.
Is Otto Thriftwick. And the group, that first game was mostly establishing all of this background and setting up the adventure. And then you guys had a forced march to try and make it quickly. as best you could to make it to the town of Stormhill, and in the meantime, ended up encountering a bunch of ogres, and that was like very much a. I want to set this up to show you guys where your power levels are, because I remember Jeff was like, "Okay, we're gonna take on a bunch of ogres. This might be rough," and then you guys trashed them because you're not weak. You're like 7th level characters.
Did you have to throw extra ogres at us, or were planning on 3?
I actually, and I often will do this. I actually didn't have a specified number in mind. I
Oh,
just
cool.
threw some and decided I would add as necessary. It's like cooking, right?
Yeah.
You're like, how much salt should I add? Well, add some, taste it, and then add some more. Add some
This
villains,
stew needs
beat on the
more
party,
ogres.
and see if you need to add more. And sometimes you will. Um, yeah, exactly. I think DMing is very much like cooking. But then the second adventure, was a lot more interesting stuff happened because we no longer had to get the party together. And so the second adventure started off with some exhaustion from the forced march. Um, Copernicus is still looking a little rough, but Ugna is basically carrying 2 of the party members. Uh,
Just literally carrying them on my shoulders.
and then uh, the group, first of all, got spotted by some dragons in the icy wastes of the north and had to run and hide. Um, then were overtaken by a group of merchants, Phoenician merchants from the south, and specifically a loxodon and a bunch of leonids and turtles, and then decided to join together for safety in numbers. And I think that's when you guys noticed you were being followed by a red-eyed raven, or at least a few people noticed. I actually don't think they've told everybody yet.
I've not been told. I have zero information. Clueless as always.
And then Fetid, the Kobold Ranger, ranged on ahead to try and spot if there was any traps laying in wait at the bridge that you guys knew you were coming towards. And sure enough, there was. There was a magic stone, and Tromlin sent his monkey familiar that not everybody knows about with Fetid, so he could observe. And then a crazy shadow raven wolf monster thing came surging out of the chasm under the bridge and attacked Fetid, and then passed through him and went on to attack the caravan, because it turned out these things were after Otto the merchant. And another one came out of the hills, and then you guys absolutely totaled the first one. I'm trying to remember all of the tricks you guys did on it. Ugna faced off with it. Tromlin did a Misty Step backstab combo. Copernicus summoned a greater demon in midair 100 feet above it so it would fall on it, summoning a large fat demon. I don't know if everybody in the chat saw Lars' drawing, but that was pretty awesome.
Oh, if we should find the link and try and drop it in there. It was so good.
That was a drawing specifically of the moment when the summoning happened. Yeah, and we left off with you guys. Copernicus got Otto out of there with a thunder step, but managed to murder some of the horses in the process. And then the healers got all over that and tried to heal the horses, and now you're scrambling to haul the caravan as quickly as you can to try and make it to the safety of the city, using a summoned phantom steed and the druid shape shifted into a draft horse. So that's where we're going to start off next time. Look at those good beans.
They're so good.
Look at those two little good beans
They're just having a good hangout.
doing all the preens. So much preening. It's very disconcerting when I switch back and forth to Discord and the stream because you're mirrored,
Oh, weird.
so it flips you. So I had some questions in Twitter that people were asking me about the house rules that we're using.
Yeah, we
So I
used
don't
a
know
lot
if
of inspiration and hero points and the infamous black token last time. I don't know that we explained them.
I explained how it works in the first session, but I'm definitely going to continue to do so and explain again when it comes up, so people uh, sort of keep the idea and new people understand what's happening. Oh, the stream is doing strange things.
Oh, what's up?
I think we're back.
Oh, cool. Lady Toad posted the link. Awesome. Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent, excellent. Um, yeah, so I can talk a little bit about how those rules work because you're going to record this, right, and put it on YouTube. So we might as well
Yep, yep.
answer some of the questions that people who aren't here asked. Um, one of the questions that I was asked a few times about house rules. Um, I'm a big fan of using narrative rules or mechanics where the players have some way to affect the narrative of the game, and not just in terms of their direct actions, like I hit this thing. Um, so the fifth edition D&D went a long way further than previous editions to try and include some of those rules. So they have the inspiration rule, and it's a fairly basic rule. Like inspiration is just something you get when the DM decides that your characters are particularly inspired or particularly um, usually the thing though is it's written as though it's meant to be a thing that you get because of what your character is doing, and you're
Yeah.
inspired, this is very important to you, so you have an inspiration. But in practice, people play it as a narrative rule. They give it to the player based on, oh, your character did a really cool thing, I'm giving you an inspiration.
One of my
And it's
DMs uses it for like, you did a really good pun or a funny joke, usually.
yeah, and I've no qualms at all about giving it out for things like that, for sure. uh, but it's I see it as a narrative tool. It's a way that the players can go, okay, I'm trying to do this thing and I failed at it, but this is a point that really matters to the narrative. So I want to try again. I'll spend one of my rerolls. I'm going to take another shot, right? And then the hero point, the mechanics behind the hero points in the rule book. This is an optional rule. I can't remember which book it's in. Is it in the DMG? I
Maybe?
think it might
I
be.
don't remember.
But the hero point um, is the way it's written. It's very specific in what it does, and it's another sort of mechanism of re-rolling, basically. But uh, I've seen quite a few DMs expand it, and I like that idea. The idea that instead of just doing a very basic mechanic thing, the hero point is more of a camera seizing mechanic where the player can go, I want to control this scene a little bit. I want to sort of DM a little bit here. Would it be cool if this is happening, or if this is an option for my character, or can I do this thing that's kind of stretching the rules? And hero points are something that you generally only have one of. And if you use it, you don't usually get it back unless the DM has decided that it's another point in the story where it's the players have an option to do something heroic. And these are really good protagonist roles. They're good ways to give the characters, who aren't just any old people in the story, they're the main characters of the story, um, a little bit more, that gives the players a little bit more agency. and so I'm a big fan of doing that. The black tokens is something I've quite liked, and it's something that Alina has done in
Yeah,
tabletop
I'm
games
using
that
it in
we've played.
my the D&D game I'm running currently. It's been working really well. And that's a rule
And it's
I kind of lifted from Don't Rest Your Head.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's the idea in Don't Rest Your Head is it's a rule that you can spend your special token to do special things, but when you do so, um, you're giving it to the DM to potentially spend back against you later. Uh, and I really like those mechanics because all DMs are going to do things to try and screw over their characters here and there. It's part of what creates the drama of the story, but it feels more fair if you're paying for it,
It feels
right?
like you
So if the
earned it.
players basically, yeah, and if the players basically go, okay, I really want to do this thing, and it's going to require, it's can I do this special thing if I give you a black token? Um, sure. And then later on, if I do something that throws a complication or a monkey wrench at the group, I'm doing it by spending the black tokens back or returning the black tokens to the players, and it feels paid for. It feels like this is an appropriate balance instead of feeling like railroading or crappy persecution by the game master. Um, and obviously, you're still going to put like obstacles in front of them, but it allows you to do dramatic twists. And in some cases, you don't even know. It's not always even necessarily negative. It can just be like, oh, hey, you know that person that you wrote up in your background? This is the point, the inconvenient time that they choose to show up. And that kind of complication you can just write into the story, but it's so much more interesting to the players if there's a connection, right? Some sort of connection between it. So
Yeah, I have to. I regret taking a token so early, and
definitely don't.
I don't trust you with the leverage that I have handed you at all.
I would I highly encourage the players to do the black tokens because there's a culture in Dungeons and Dragons of adversary between uh, DM and player, um, and I don't run that way, right? Anytime you spend a black token and I use it against you, it's going to be interesting,
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
right? It's just going to make the
I don't
story
think
good.
you've ever screwed us over, but you've always given us a twist that we're always like, oh, now we have to think our way out of this one, or like, oh, I wouldn't have considered that, but yeah, now we have to do this different. We have to do this plan differently.
It,
Uh,
So
it
definitely
reminds
don't.
me. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say definitely don't regret it. I love that you put one in, because now it's happening, right? It's affecting the game
yeah,
instead of, oh, this is an option, but no one's going to do it because everyone's afraid of the consequences, so it's
yeah.
it's not going to affect anything. Then what's the point?
We've
It
also
So
gotten
I'm
reminds
very
me a
motto.
happy
little.
that you did.
Hmm?
It reminds me a little bit of like paradox from some of the mage games.
Yeah,
Or I can't
totally.
remember which
Yep.
edition pushes it really hard, but like the idea that you're kind of pushing the boundaries of what's possible, and then at some point the possibility pushes back at you. And I'm
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
waiting
basically
for
a
the.
third edition thing, but yeah.
We also have a mentality in LARP, especially in this one group I played with in Edmonton, that's sort of like love the pain. Like when
Mm,
something detrimental happens to your character, it's a chance for good meaty role play. Your character can angst about it or try and scheme their way out of it. It's not like I'm losing, I lost. It's like, oh cool, I love this, love the pain.
yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah, yeah.
we'll see. We'll see how the pain manifests.
We'll see how it manifests. But it's always going to be fun and interesting. So yeah, it's one of those things too where you have to deal with. There's always player culture, and in a lot of Dungeons and Dragons games, the culture can get quite adversarial.
Mm,
But where there's an attitude that the game master's job is to screw you over, and the players' jobs are to do their best to survive that. Um, and it's not something that I'm fond of. I prefer the more of the mutual story building.
We're here to
Um,
to all make an interesting story.
yeah,
yeah,
everyone's yeah. The game master's job is to make sure that the story comes out cool, and not to just throw obstacles
Yeah.
one after the other at
I
the
mean,
players
it
and do
also
your
means
best
not
to.
going too easy on us either, because sometimes you get
Yep.
the best character moments when they're really hit with adversity. It's like, oh, cool,
Yeah.
we got captured, and now we have to like try and get our stuff back and escape from this locked keep. Like that's a cool story.
Yeah, and a lot of games have built-in complication mechanics. Like D&D does, at least in various sub editions, have had like encounter tables, right? Where the idea is roll for you've traveled this much today, so roll to see what happens. And some of the things on the table are quite bad, and some of the things on the table are fine. Um, and you can use those mechanics, but that's not. It's a little more boring because the story is being built by random dice rolls instead of by deliberate choices. So the black tokens is a way to give the option of the bad roll on the encounter table without it being okay. We have to play using encounter tables and build the most mundane story. But like I've played in games where there's I think a downtime system where you go okay between game sessions there's things that your characters can do. Speaking of Goblinization Day, Shadowrun's a great example of this, where between the adventures is when your characters do all of the maintenance-y stuff. And there are games where the downtime system has a built-in make this dice roll to see if a complication arises from your downtime, and then the game master has to throw one at you, and it's based on the rolls. Um, and I would certainly, if honestly, I feel like if the playing here that we see, if you guys don't make a lot of use of the black tokens, I may have to introduce a mechanic to generate them randomly to a certain degree. Who knows? Or I may simply say, oh, there's a chance here for some really bad luck to happen, but you know what? I'm just going to take a black token and we'll avoid it. So it's all good. I wasn't following the chat,
Oh,
so
thanks,
I wasn't
Exurgency.
looking.
Yay. Exurgency says we're two solid DMs.
Aw.
And Dave Werlo says playing with other DMs can be great. They know the score and they can lean into it, which is totally true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like someone who's run a game before knows how hard it is, and also like knows what makes for a good story, and will
Yeah.
maybe take better risks or greater risks with their character because of it.
Or
Yeah.
or know which risks to take.
Yeah.
I know that for me, Perny really, really wanted to provoke the dragon in the last session. And it was the like, is this going to throw the entire story off the rails and inconvenience the party and the DM thing that made me think like, okay, I'm going to pose the possibility that Perny might like respond to the dragon or provoke it in some way as more like a question to Layne. Like that's the way that I chose to handle that scene, was to
Yep.
say like, okay, well, would I be compelled by the Gesh? What's the wording of where this fits on my list of things that I need to do before I die? I might be giving too much character stuff away that hasn't been revealed on screen yet, so maybe I'll walk this back a bit.
Spoilers.
But basically, yeah.
All good.
But I tried to leave enough room to get a sense of how much you want this not to happen or to happen, or what
Oh,
your
yeah.
take was on
Like,
it before doing anything immediate.
I'm pretty good at running with it. If it's there, if it happened, it happened. But I thought it was a good choice to make the roll. To call it a will save, and then of course that then puts everybody else in a position. Okay, what do we do? Do we stop? How do we stop this? Because like they could definitely have done something to try and prevent you from provoking the dragons.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
There's lots of good stuff.
Yeah.
I'm liking, like, we're at a point now where the we're at a point where the sorry, I had a message. Yeah, we're at a point where the group is sort of gelling, which is always a thing that has to happen in the first few adventures of any D&D game. So I'm excited to see in the next like couple of sessions we're going to see more and more and more role play, right? As the characters are more and more gelled.
Well, I think this next session, a lot of people are going to have questions for Perny. The
See.
demon was like, Copernicus, I'll get you.
Yeah, I'm gonna be. We just to be very clear, the demon said Copernicus, and that could be anybody.
Literally anyone.
Yeah.
Ogna certainly has no suspicions.
Yeah.
About anything
I think that
ever.
think if it came down to it, Copernicus could convince Ugna that Copernicus was Aggie's way of trying to say Ugna. And in fact, the demon was there
Oh,
for
what did
Ugna.
I do? Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Is this like
Oh,
the thing
no.
with
Do
the
I,
mob?
do,
I
do I
didn't
owe
even
him
know
money?
I could summon. I didn't even know I could summon demons. Apparently, I gotta be careful if I sneeze now.
I'm just
Yeah, you never know
I'm
when
just
you're gonna
posting
sneeze
on
wrong, and
Facebook.
suddenly there'll be a demon.
I'm just posting
I don't know if you can hear these boys squeaking, but they're in like full sleepy happy bird mode.
oh, I can definitely hear them.
Mary is practicing his words.
Do, 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 do. I will be back to the chat here in a second.
Consequences.
Consequences.
I hear that in the tone from the Key and Peele sketch.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about everyone else, but every time I hear that word now, it's always consequences. Like the guy who's starting on stage in front of high schoolers, telling them increasingly escalating stories about how bad decisions turned into the most like ridiculous.
Consequences. Whoop. Small boys. You
That's
look at the
fun.
camera. They're fluffy.
Oh, there's a new question. Which character would be the craziest?
Hmm.
In very different ways, it's kind of everybody. I think the
I mean,
even
Glorpa.
Tromlin,
Glorpa, though.
Glorpa's pretty crazy in the I don't interact with humans much and I don't understand how they
I
work.
lived in a bog.
I was I've lived feral in the swamp for my entire life, and therefore I don't particularly understand things.
Yep.
And we're about to go into a town and hang out in town. So Glorpa's going to have to deal with like buildings and guardsmen and all sorts of things that are like, okay, what am I going to do about this? Yeah. And then I actually think probably the least crazy is probably Fetid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking
Yeah.
about
Even Tromlin
that. It's
has
very
like,
well adjusted.
yeah, he may like live in the sewers and eat garbage, but he's very,
He's
honest
practical.
about it.
He's real practical about that. Ugna's probably next because she's not super crazy, except that she will run headlong into any danger, like without
Yeah,
hesitation.
it's less crazy and more
Just fearless.
selectively
Yeah.
intelligent.
Yeah. She doesn't know how dangerous things are, and she's real big, and generally she just survives.
She's differently smart.
Exactly. She would run into
And
a
then
situation where other people would definitely get killed, and she'll be fine.
and Tromlin's pretty stable. It's just he's got his like little bit of religious schizophrenia going on with his
Yeah, a little
whole
bit.
who am I worshiping today,
I
and
also
his
think like his family
compulsions.
may drive him crazy.
And his party is going to
Yeah,
drive him crazy.
Mm-hmm. He's definitely
yeah.
A lot of that.
the voice of
He's definitely the
reason.
long-suffering dad of the party in terms of like vibe.
Yup.
Like he's apologizing for our behavior when we're running around,
Just being
causing
us.
problems, exploding horses, which again it could have been any of us.
Yeah, there was thunder, and sometimes thunder explodes some horses.
Yeah, yeah. What I realized after at the end of the session was that Perny was both trying to deny the crime while also signing it. Like him yelling "Grandpa" out and throwing hard candies in the air when he vanishes in a crack of thunder, but then immediately later saying that like that wasn't me was not consistent. So I'm gonna have to think about whether or not he wants to sign his crimes, or when he wants to sign his crimes, because I think that was like in one moment that decision was fun, and the next moment that decision was fun, but they didn't necessarily ladder up.
My feeling on it is that he's probably conflicted because my feeling is that as an adventurer, like until he recently kind of connected with Tromlin, he was probably fine with like advertising a lot of the powers and the magic and the things he was doing, and it's really more of a, oh, I want to kind of like have a normal relationship with my grandson or my grand
Something.
whatever.
Mhm.
So I'm going to try and downplay it, and that's partly why in my head canon, that's partly why he's not good at it. He's just not used to doing it. So he's like, yeah, that magic spell that I just cast could have been anyone.
Totally.
I like that read. I had been thinking that he, to a certain extent, is almost in denial about the fact that he has magic powers. Um, like if you confronted him, he might actually mentally retreat to a place where he's like, "No, these are just coincidences," or like, "Oh, I play pranks sometimes." Like he'd minimize it, I think. Um, and but I kind of like the idea that maybe he's a bit more aware of it, or that he's like he's holding space for Tromlin for this not to be um, all of the horrifying blood magic that it is. But we can kind of decide that as we play it. So I'm curious to see
Yep.
how that resolves the roleplay. I'm definitely
And
curious to see Tromlin confront Perny and how
yeah,
Perny responds. So I've been thinking about it, but not wanting to rehearse the conversation because I'd like it to be genuine when it
Yeah.
happens.
yeah, I really enjoy that type of character building where like it's actually one of the things that I enjoy the most about role playing games as a player is discovering the character. It's like you write a character and you may have a lot of stuff in mind, but then you can't anticipate every scenario you're going to be in. So there's got to be something that surprises you, and so you get out there, and then your character's in a situation where you have to make a decision, and you may actually make a decision where you're like, oh, this is how my character is going to respond to this. I hadn't considered that, but
Yeah.
this is clearly what makes sense. And I love that. I
That's when the
love the
characters kind of
getting some.
start taking on a life of their own, where they catch
Yeah,
you, the player, by surprise. You're like, I wouldn't have done that, but my character is definitely doing that.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's like my favorite part of role playing games is that character growth, and it's one of the reasons why I'm really against the kind of the more adversarial gaming where you often have characters dying, right?
Yeah.
Nothing bothers me more than a pointless character death, right?
Have you two read the RPG Horror Stories subreddit?
I think I've seen like
I
memes
I
from it.
haven't, but I've lived it. So
Fair.
Yeah, yeah. It's an interesting one. It's like it's almost a subset of like D&D green text as a subreddit, which is almost a subset of D&D memes. Then they also have areas that don't overlap between the three of those, but those are all like ones that I love being subbed to on Reddit, and they're all really interesting. But yeah, it makes me so grateful for the gaming groups I've had
Yeah.
where there isn't that adversarial relationship, where people are interested in the mutual enterprise of telling an interesting story that we all have. It's almost like
yep.
when you spell things out on a Ouija board, like uh, the skeptics say that it's just everyone's mutual impulses, and sometimes you're fighting each other, and sometimes your efforts are canceling out, and one person's thing's happening. But like you're kind of all pushing the story together and seeing what comes out of it, and you all have a certain amount of control, and you also don't. And there also is some kind of weird spirit at the table sometimes, steering things and taking providing its own energy to the session or the seance or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, but I like seeing how that comes together, and I
And
don't like the adversarial thing.
yeah, and that's a big part of like the table culture. One of the things that's really interesting I find in the development of these games, how difficult it is to write culture into a game. And it turns out that you cannot write a role playing game without culture in it because the influence of the mechanics affect the culture of play. Um, and you end up in some cases with a big divide. Some games are written with the fluff text or the setting text and the flavor is written very this for style A. We've written this. The intent is you will play your characters in this way, but then when you actually play the game, the mechanics drive you in a different direction.
Right. Right.
And I consider that that's bad game design, but it's also really hard to avoid because usually when you're thinking about the mechanics, you're just thinking about like how do they represent what the things your characters can do, and not how do they drive the culture of play,
Well, I
which is
know.
a very different idea.
Yeah, a lot of indie games are starting to really go, this is the sort of game that you will play when you are playing this game, just so you're forewarned and aren't caught off guard when you're playing it. Monster Hearts, their introduction is like, this is going to be a game that's going to look like this. It's going to be really real and really messy, and you won't necessarily have control full control over your character's actions, so you need to be okay with that. And it actually does a really good job of selling you exactly what you're going to play, because that's every Monster Hearts game. Very, very much summed up by that intro. These
I
birds are
can
too
really
cute.
hear the boys
They're real cute.
squeaking.
Yeah, they're cleaning each other. Noses.
But yeah, it's in some games, you know, you get that flavor text that tells you this is the kind of game you're going to play, but then the way the game is built, it doesn't deliver that. The players tend to pick it up and go in a different direction because of the way the game is built. Um, Monster Hearts, I think, or yeah, in some of those games, um, Monster Hearts, I think, is a really good example of a game that does it quite well. The
Yep,
mechanics back up that
100%.
description.
100%. On the
But
other hand, it means it's
I
an
learned a long
inflexible
time
game.
ago.
I was just gonna say, it means
Yeah,
it's an inflexible game. You're only gonna
yeah,
run that one game with it. You can't run any other kind of experience.
and that's the flip side of a lot of the indie game design is that they are very rigidly designed games. So they're very good at doing what they're supposed to do, but then the result is they have less flexibility. And if say what you will about 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, it's an extremely accessible, flexible game. Um, and one of the things I learned a long, long time ago with in Dungeons and Dragons specifically is that so much um, of D&D is kind of without culture, and different groups have built their culture around it. And so you'll hear about groups who play very improv heavy, very story driven D&D where the rules are really fast and loose, and applied very fast and loose. And nowadays you can see those games. You can go on the stream and watch people play. Like the number of streams I've seen where you can sit there and be like, oh my god, they've thrown the rule book out the window, because how often are you seeing the rules being improperly applied here? Um, but then you have other groups that are like extremely all about the rules, and it's basically tournament style play, um, and everything's very mechanically driven. And you can get like that. Well, sometimes your character just dies, and that's just what happens, and you make another one, and that's just constant turnover is a part of the game because it's that kind of game. It's like playing a video game.
Yeah.
Sometimes you play a video game and you die and you go, you make a new character because you kind of screwed up the storyline. Some people hate a game where you can save your storyline and you want to have to go able to go back, and some people are the opposite. Um,
Character death
I
is one of those
think
things
that
that's really like subjective too, because at some points, like I've certainly had characters die where I'm like, this is a good end to their story, and I'm really happy about it, and I wouldn't do it any differently.
yep,
And then there's other times where I'm like, that their characters, their arc isn't done yet. I want to bring them back somehow. Like this shouldn't have happened. And that can be a fun thing to explore too. The character who's come back from death and like seen the world
hmm
beyond and come back changed. That's fun. It can also be a thing that drives plot where it's like, okay, now the group has to go and find a way to like resurrect you or find your soul in a shard somewhere and bring it back.
I seem to remember that Fate of the Norns, which is like a rune-based RPG system, is actually has like your death and afterlife as part of the game
Oh,
mechanics.
cool.
I haven't played it before. I've heard so much about it, and I've been wanting to find a group to play it with at some point. But yeah, Fate of the Norns. I think literally they baked that into the storytelling because afterlife and heroics are so tied to the like Norse culture that it's drawing from.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
trying to remember
yeah.
who made it. I've heard of it before, but I don't remember.
Andrew Valkakis or something like that.
Like, is it full
Something
indie
like
or
that.
is there a company behind it?
No, it's full indie.
Okay.
Like I think it's just Andrew, and occasional collaborators or whatever.
Yeah, I agree in the chat there. An ending that was built up to versus an ending that's just a failed save or die.
Yeah, totally.
Um, and that does come down to sort of the culture that when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons, where the culture of play is very flexible. You have to decide how you're going to build it. So in this game, for example, I will absolutely take black tokens as to stave off death. If we have a character who's like, well, this attack could be 100% instant death. Not that there's a lot of ways that happens in D&D anymore,
Well,
but
and you get death saves. If it's like, I failed 3 death saves, but I don't actually want to die, can I spend a black token?
yeah, exactly. or the sort of thing where it's like, if I don't have enough time to make these death saves before someone can come out, there's no way. Um, I might just do a thing where it's like, you know what? Here's a give me a black token, and I'll just call that like you rolled a nat 20 on a death save.
Right.
And so you like after the battle has passed, you wake up in the ditch like left for dead, but you survive.
Actually, that's a
And
good
then
point
that
because that's
character,
like that's a point where I would spend give somebody their black token back immediately. It's like, hey, so you're buying off your death with the black token, but your body's in the river. You're getting swept out over the waterfall. Everyone else thinks you're dead, dead. I'm
yeah,
giving you back your
Mhm.
black token, and I'm gonna have you wake up the next morning like battered on the edge of the river. You don't know where the group is, and do like a
That's
side
fun.
scene thing where they have to try and
Yeah.
find their way back, and the group has to think that they're alive. Maybe they find clues. Could be its own plot.
Meg has been deciding lately that her bedtime is earlier and earlier. I don't know why,
Yeah.
because clearly she's doing why, hey human, why aren't you putting me to bed? I will flap around now.
Meg's also hitting buttons on my chat, so I had the chat was like gone, so I had to bring it back with my nose because I only have one hand. Birds.
Anybody have any other questions? I've given you a few tastes of the map. I don't know if anybody wants to see anything or ask anything about the setting.
What is your and I know that you don't want to spoil stuff, so I don't know how you answer this question. But what is the location you're most excited for us to visit?
Um, that is a good one. I've shown like the basic Northlands map, so there's definitely like I'm not worried about naming the locations. Um, and there's a few good spots that came up on the Northlands. I built a Freeport like pirate city, and that's obviously going to be um, a fun place. So that's Port Evermere, the island in the middle of the sea. Um, and a big one is going to be Dwimmerdell, the city that's on the other side of that little northern sea that all this stuff is on. I have no idea if we can actually share an image of the map at
I
this point,
might
since
be
we
able
don't have the
to if
proper
I had
overlay.
an arm, but I don't. I know which part
Um,
I'm most excited about because I don't know anything about Lane's world or what he's building, but I do know that he asked me to build something that I made for my D&D game. I made a place called Nelmarzesh, which is the homeland of the
mhm.
Dragonborn, and it's got a whole bunch of real specific setting details to it that I can't wait to see how much of that you kept and what you
Yep,
changed.
I stole a bunch of that.
Yeah,
Um, Dave Valero, uh, or Dave Oerlo. I'm not
Davuerlo?
sure how you want me to pronounce that,
Davuerlo.
but uh, you've all played together before, right? No, actually, we've all exhibited at shows before, and particularly this is the group Davo Erlo. Okay,
Cool.
uh,
Davuerlo
this is the
said
group
they
that.
met us at Emerald City, which is pretty cool.
Oh, so yeah,
Yeah,
you've seen
yeah, yeah.
the shows, but this is specifically a big core group of the Gen Con people. So like
Mhm.
when we do Gen Con, this is the people who are at the table,
Yeah,
or at
it's
least a
minus
significant number of them,
Sam and Corey.
and the
Mhm.
blind ferret guys.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but he's from Australia.
Oh,
Mhm.
cool.
But the sort of like Dungeons and Dragons themed escape room that we did is
Oh
the
God,
closest thing I think we've done to, and I have
Yeah,
the poster up. I'm gonna get it and show
that
it off because
was
it's so
one of the
freaking beautiful.
greatest nights of my life. That was so
do
much
so.
fun. I
Yeah,
think
that
it
was
was
great.
one of Jeff's
A
fans, wasn't it, who
Yeah, it was
was
a
running the
fan,
escape room?
a group of fans of
Yeah,
Jeff and Sam.
yeah, right.
Uh, they run a company that does uh, escape rooms in Chicago, and they came and set up one at Gen Con. Um, there are indeed gnolls in the. I just saw this new question, but just while Peter has just been showing off the poster.
Ooh, Knowles.
Um, Yeah, we a group of us at the Gen Con booth, which included Jeff and I feel like Randy was there. Was Randy there?
Randy was there, but Randy
Who all
didn't
was the group
come
of
to
us?
the escape room
Oh yeah,
that
he
evening.
couldn't come to the escape room.
Melky was
Yeah.
there though.
David Malky,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Jeff, Sam, and the three of us.
Oh, hey, Rinkus is here. Hey, Rinkus. Rinkus is a friend of ours from Calgary.
Yeah. I had a question about Knowles, and if this is the trash heroes, where are the Knowles? So far, I've had one Knoll NPC. In the first adventure, we met
That's right. He's a knoll.
the sheriff of
Boss
Mudhole.
hog.
Boss Hog is his boss. Boss Hog is the Lord Mayor.
Right.
Is an orc named Hog,
Right.
and Rufus Coltrane or
Oh yeah.
Cold Rain.
Cold
That's it.
Rain.
Rufus Cold Rain is the Knoll sheriff, who's a cross between Roscoe P. Coltrane and the wolf sheriff from Disney's Robin Hood. And we'll see a lot more of him because he's basically the Fedid's nemesis.
Good. Good.
So he's going to be around. And I have other Knoll NPCs as well planned. I'm actually doing one of the things that always bugs me about D&D and different editions, and 5th edition is really doubling down on it a lot, is the legacy of D&D builds a lot of stuff that doesn't have a lot of rhyme or reason to it. So like the races, the playable races in 5th edition D&D are just a random grab bag that has no logic of any sort to it, and that's because of its origins, right? Like a lot of these are races from previous editions of the game that they've brought back. Some of it is new stuff from a subcontracted supplement, right? That somebody wrote and therefore came up with whatever races they wanted to come up with, and the result is that it doesn't have a lot of reason to it. So I actually distilled down the races in the world that I'm doing to a specific set of 7 types or kins. And so there are beast kin, and we created a language for them, a common language for the beast kin called bestial. And all of the tabaxian turtles and gnolls and anything that is basically an animal type. I said tabaxi. Leonids, the loxodons, anything that's like an animal person
Aarakocra.
is basically, yeah, the Aarakocra and the Raven folk, which are a specific race that I'm doing because I don't like that that you have such a divide between Aarakocra and
Kenku.
I always want to say Tengu, but it's
Kenku.
Kenku.
Yeah.
So the satyr are a flavor of human, basically. So one of the 7 kinds uh, are basically humankind, and that includes all of the X-blooded in my setting. So basically, if you are a tiefling, you're a demonic blooded human. If you're an Asmar, you're a divine blooded human. A satyr is a type of fey blooded human. And this allows to have a thing that D&D kind of glosses over, where they go, tieflings are a race. Does that mean that tieflings can only breed with other tieflings? Does that mean, do tieflings breed true if a tiefling breeds with a human? Is it a dominant trait? How does this work?
Ask the
Except, oh,
geneticist
wait a
about
second.
D&D.
Yeah, sorry, I'm a biologist. This stuff bugs me. So when they're like, okay, oh, but in some of the supplements and stuff, a tiefling can be made, right, by having a contract, a human makes a demonic contract, it becomes a tiefling. So my feeling is that clearly there's whatever race they were to begin with, and then there's like a skinning on top of that of a flavor. So the satyr I am treating as a somebody got touched by the fae, if you know what I mean, and the result is that the offspring have some fairy blood. Yeah, previous and some of this too is that there's previous editions. I saw Exurgency say, yeah, previous editions have part of the problem is that a lot of this is baggage. A lot of this is from previous editions and a certain degree and a certain of this or that comes through, and some of it isn't. It's the fifth edition using all of the stuff from second or third or whatever. So yeah, and so I broke it down into the 7 kinds. So there's the human kind, and then there's lots of little flavors of that. Halflings are basically small humankind. I'm totally allowing multiples, so you could have a halfling tiefling, which I was saying probably are referred to as imps derogatorily. You can have an Asimar halfling and so on. Then, in addition to the humankind, there are the stone kin or stone kind, which is basically giant and dwarf races. There are the fey kind, which include elves and gnomes, but also anything else that we want to like end up coming up with. You could have furbolgs, for example, that would fit into that category. The beast kind I already mentioned. What
Dragon
else we
kind.
got here? The dragon kind, of course,
Yep.
which includes kobolds as well as draconic. Then you've got your 2 other the goblin kind, which includes orcs and bugbears and lots of those kind of things. And I'm forgetting one because I don't have the list in front of me. And then the 7th one is other kind, because of course there's Planescape and there's multiple worlds, and I wanted to write a game where people know that this exists. So frequently people will encounter beings from other planes, other worlds, and they know, oh, you are another kind. You're not one of the other 6 races. You're from another place.
Right. You might be startled if like a Githyanki wandered out, but you wouldn't be like, "Oh God, what is this monster?"
Yeah, you would be like, oh, I've never seen that type of being before, but I know that other kinds of beings exist. And this is stuff that I partly came up with because I don't like, one of the things that I've seen other games do is, oh, my character is an unusual type of race. And so is mine, and so is mine, and so is mine. And everything we do and everywhere we go, we have to keep playing through these people of this town are shocked to see you creatures. And now these people at this town are shocked to see you creatures. And now these people at this town are
Right.
shocked to see you creatures. Like, that gets old real
In this
fast.
game, we've got what, 3 humankind? Because Genasi,
Uh,
satyr, and
yes.
actual human.
Yeah, we have an elemental blooded human, which is
Yeah.
a genasi. We have a fey blooded human, which is a satyr, and we have a regular flavor human, ancient warlock.
And then we got 1 goblin kind and 1
only
dragon
by
kind.
accident. Exactly. It's bugging me which one I forgot now. I gotta look it up.
Oh, please don't poop on me, boys.
I don't have the. I don't have the file handy.
See if I can convince them to get off of me before they poop. Now that they're done their nap.
Oh no, they're stretching. It means poop is coming soon.
They're gonna warm up.
Just double checking. I thought I saw another.
Oh, feels good to
another
stretch my arm.
question, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I saw a serious question other than that.
I think I'm gonna have to run a Twitter poll on Astling or Halfamar because they're both great. And
I like the idea that
I mean,
they're called
Cherub definitely
cherubs.
is the appearance. Yeah.
I like the idea that they're because the thing is that
Totally.
we have nicknames, right?
Yeah.
I love the idea that someone would be like, "Oh, that's one of those small-kinded, the small folk, divine-blooded people. What do we call them as cherubs? Hey, cherub, get over
They're
here."
small.
It may or may not be pleasing to the recipient.
Oh yeah, question: do Quaggles call themselves Quaggles, or is that a word?
Is that a slur?
We established that it was originally a slur, but it was reclaimed.
Oh right.
And
Cool.
the Quaggles describe themselves as Quaggles.
Yeah.
But that's because they're proud.
It's very empowering.
To be, they're proud to be the sewer dwellers, and they're like, "Screw you, big people. We're here. We're here. We're Quaggle. Get used to it. We're here. We're trash. Get used to it."
I mean, that's the tagline for our game.
Yeah, basically. I was just watching because it's a little delayed. I was just watching Mary carefully climbing your arm.
They found my braid and they're picking at it now, so they live behind my head.
Yeah, they really like taking the hair tie out.
It's their favorite game.
One of their favorite games. Yeah.
I wonder if you could do like a swarm master type thing with like someone with just like a giant like bird house of hair. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, I mean, like you absolutely be a Radagast the Brown
Oh,
with the
totally.
birds living on it.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. It's one of those disconnects because the problem is though it's absolutely says that in the flavor text. It says the swarm keeper, the swarm can be, and gives a bunch of examples. But the mechanics, it has to be something flying because like the first level mechanic of it, or the
It
third level,
flies
whatever
over
it
there
is,
and does a thing.
you get, it acts as a mage hand.
Yeah.
So you're gonna sit there being like, okay, well, what if I want it to be rats? Do they have to be flying rats, or do I have a mage hand spell that doesn't function exactly the same because it can only work on the
They're
ground?
acrobatic rats, and they like stack
Yeah,
up 3 feet, and then will like grab the
The
thing.
retrobats.
Yeah, retrobats.
ratcrobats.
Retrobats,
Okay, I got to use that now. You guys have to encounter some
Yeah.
ratcrobats.
which is different from a rat cravat, which is just rat on your chin.
Yeah.
Just
Yep.
hanging there,
Yeah.
looking all
They like
dapper.
the warm little nooks, so,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
a rat cravat. Certainly
Honestly,
makes
they
sense.
do.
I
Rats really like
just
being
in the
inside your
chat,
clothes.
just to respond in the chat, I did in fact actually establish that
Oh,
there is
Meg.
a place called
Meg.
Quaggle Rock.
Meg.
What is Meg doing?
Meg has hung from my camera and moved it
Oh,
around.
and that's why the camera moved. um, the town of Mud Hollow, because it's built on the edge of a swamp, it's basically built on the rocky ground between the edge of the swamp and the ocean. And the main rock where the keep was built, underneath it, where the dungeons are, there are of course little narrow passages that the Quaggles have made for themselves so that they can hide and move around the city. And the central part of that under the keep is called Quaggle Rock,
Down
or
at
just
Craig
the
Rock.
Rock. Yep. And there will definitely be adventures that happen where people end up going down in Quaggle Rock.
I don't think I can fit.
Oh, magic can do a lot of things.
I mean, that's true. Somebody needs to shrink Ugna.
I literally, I think I may have actually given Glorpa a shrinking potion recipe. I don't remember if I
Good.
definitely did or if it's just on the random chart.
Good, good,
So
good, good.
we have a random chart.
Honey, I
Because,
Shrunk the Tank.
yep. And something that I'll push more in future games as there's more opportunities. Glorpa absolutely has the ability to take random stuff you guys are encountering. So, for example, maybe somebody wants to take some ogre blood, after an encounter, and try and see what kind of potion could be made. And that's why I have some pretty serious tables, because Glorpa has a feat for that. Another thing I was asked on Twitter a while back was about the things like the backgrounds, the stuff that's appearing on the character sheets.
Yeah, yeah.
So you guys can all, I believe you've all seen the character sheets that cycle underneath the DM screen on the videos. And so I've had somebody asking about what are those things that are on there, and basically the short answer is in 5th edition D&D everybody gets a background, like a general background that you choose. Tromlin's, for example, is the charlatan background, and every background listed in the books gives you one background trait. And I went, that's not fun enough, so I made a list of general background traits, and I gave each of the player characters another 4. So everybody gets a total of 5 background traits, and this is why both Ugna and Fetid, for example, have iron liver. That's a background trait. Fetid also has iron stomach as a background trait, which basically allows him to eat frickin' anything, and so forth. And in addition to using those background traits, I'm also using flaws from a list of flaws. And those aren't appearing on the character sheets. I was considering trying to edit them so we can make room so people can see your guys' flaws, because several of them have come up in gameplay, right?
Mhm.
So Copernicus's Gesh, for example, has come up.
I mean,
Um,
Ugna is gullible.
yeah,
I think I'm playing that.
yeah, I think Ugnas are almost like
They're
painfully
just
obvious.
obvious.
Because what does Ugna have? Gullible. Um,
Kind-hearted. So if I see somebody in danger, I gotta
right,
go help.
right.
That hasn't really come up yet.
I mean, it started to.
Kind
You
of.
certainly have some cowering little raven folk.
I did let the ogre go. I was like, "Are you done fighting? All right, you go home. Go on."
And then, your mob history, of course,
Oh
has
yeah.
come up.
Oh no, that was like the
Oh yeah,
plot.
yeah. That is the
That's
premise.
another one.
That is the premise of the
Yeah,
first episode. Hey buddy, you coming up? There you go, bud.
yeah. And then Glorpa has disgusting habits, which is pretty obvious,
Yeah,
but
but what are
also
her flaws?
absent-minded, which will be interesting. Hey, now that could be construed
Yeah.
as a slight against Danielle.
Never. Danielle's wonderful.
Danielle doesn't have the same disgusting habits. Sorry, Danielle, we love you.
Yep. Danielle, you're great.
Um, we have an interesting question in the chat here. What D&D monsters freak you out?
Ooh. Huh.
I don't know if there are any D&D monsters that particularly freak me out.
I find with like creature design, anything that connects back to like memory or memory loss disturbs me on like a deep level, and I can't remember where that fits into D&D. But like anything that involves like the idea of like either you lose memory, or your character loses track of who they are, or like whenever there's every now and then like an RPG will do something with like a threat that actually like erases you from existence, and all those feelings of like losing your grip on the reality that you're in, those definitely they tweak some part of my brain that's like, no, don't like that, take it away.
Yeah.
And yet it's like one of my favorite spaces to write in and create in is those spaces, because I know exactly how terrifying it is, or at least I have such a visceral reaction.
Exurgency in the chat there, I agree, sort of in between both of those. Because when anything that takes agency away from the character is like such a violation, that is terrifying.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
They're talking.
I did do a session once back in university where I had a player who wanted to be part of this pre-agree to basically be an imposter in the group, like a changeling from you, and to
Good.
agree to be the person who like committed, who like it was gonna be like a closed room murder kind of scenario when they had to figure out who did it, and there's really enough NPCs that they'd assume it's the NPCs and not one of them. And I
Yeah.
had the PC agree to basically be playing an NPC as though it was, or play. He's playing with. He's not playing an NPC. He was not a main party member, main cast member who was just coming in. He was coming in for fun, but we're going to treat him like he was a party member, and he would avoid suspicion for as long as possible.
Oh yeah.
And
I mean,
it
this is
ended
the
up being a
thing
lot
we've
of fun.
done. That's like a standard trick in LARPs, right? So for those who aren't aware, although I think most of the people in this chat probably already know this, but Alina and I have been LARPing
God,
for a
for
very
years.
long
We
time.
met at a LARP.
Yeah,
At one of
and
my first
I
LARPs.
don't mean the kind of more what is very common in the United States, the kind of boffer style LARP where you have like padded swords and you do the fantasy stuff. I mean more of the what they call salon style LARPs that are more like
Like a
improv,
theater game.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and your characters are more um, urban things like Vampire the
Yeah.
Masquerade,
A
right?
lot of the World of Darkness games.
That's where I cut my teeth on that kind of a LARP. But I have seen so many LARPs where that stuff is built in directly. I'm thinking of like Kingdom Come, which is a LARP
Yeah.
that I've
Yeah.
run a number of times, where you have the skin demon, which is a thing where someone who gets killed has their body used to make a simulacrum that's actually being run by a demon, and that the number of times I've seen a LARP where the player is just playing that, and you get the same player who was playing their old character after their character got killed come back in and not let anybody know that their character is actually a demon now, and let that
And they're like, yeah, I wasn't actually
trickle
dead.
out.
You thought I was, but I'm back. It's
Or
great.
they don't know. They
Yeah.
don't know that the character died in a scene where they were off screen for most of the players.
I remember a very good
Yeah.
LARP where you were playing the infiltrator and we didn't guess it was you until a very long way through.
Oh, is that
That was the one where
I
you had
found
the
a baby?
baby and you're like, I found a
Yeah.
baby.
The organizer of that LARP. These are some pretty dark games, but the organizer of that LARP there were 3 of us that were infiltrating demons, and all of us, there were ways that they could detect it. There's certain powers that certain characters could have to try and detect a demon, and we knew that if they started getting suspicious, they'd start checking everyone. So each of the 3 of us had a trick to try and avoid that, and the one that I had was I literally had stolen a baby and was carrying it around because its innocent aura would interfere with anyone trying to detect my demonic aura. And I was playing like this like a Hispanic ganger, and I just kept like saying to people like, "Hey, I found a baby. Yeah, I found this baby, man." And people were like, "Why is no one taking that baby away from the crazy guy?" And I was like, "No, it's mine. I found it."
I'll take
And
good care
that
of him.
went on for a while. That was
That was the same game that ended with
quite
me
awful.
and 2 other players like huddled under a table while chaos erupted around us. And we were just like, we've got sanctuary. You can't hurt us. At least we'll survive. It was fun. We were
Well,
all
and
crying.
you were playing one of the sort of the good people that was
I
just
was
like,
playing one of the kind-hearted deistical who were like, we're not part of this battle and we don't want anything to do with it. Oh god, we're right in the middle of it. Ah.
yeah, I remember like just like group of you just weeping
It was
in a
very,
corner.
I mean,
Speaking of like love the
mwah,
pain, it's that
good.
that kind of game.
That was a good
Um,
night.
and I like to bring a lot of those aspects like of that kind of LARP that's more improv driven to a tabletop game, because it's
Drama is good. Drama
meaty,
makes good
right?
story.
There's a lot there. Um, and I'm really enjoying like the D&D, especially 5th edition D&D. Really, people are really getting the comedy into it, like more so than I ever seen in previous editions, and that may be something to do with a bit of the mainstreaming. Yeah, I've noticed the stream is kind
Oh,
of
is it?
stuttering a
Oh,
bit.
I wonder what that is. I'm gonna check if I'm connected. Yeah,
Yeah, make sure you're actually connected to the hardline and not the
yep.
Wi-Fi.
I think my cable was loose. I think it got pulled out at some point. So, hopefully, the stream will run better now.
I
First
hope
rule
so.
of tech support: jiggle the cables.
Yeah, we went to hard lines just because we live in a concrete building,
Yeah.
so weird things happen to our Wi-Fi. Even though you can see. Uh, Let me see if I can do this properly. Get
Ooh,
the right. There
I
we go.
can't do this normally, but I am going to show off
You
my
can all.
streaming setup, which I am
Oh,
very
you're gonna
proud
show off
of.
your
Not
fancy, crazy
fancy,
computer
fancy computer.
with all of
Ignore
its
all my
fairy
cables.
lights.
This
Your
is Peridot.
transparent,
She's my great
shiny.
computer. That's where all the stream comes from. I gotta get more fans in there.
You gotta get that one fan to work.
Yeah.
Call up their tech support and go, "What the heck's going on?" So I was pointing a second ago to show you guys. I was pointing at the uh, our Wi-Fi router. You can see it's like a big 4 antenna um, setup, but it's
Oh yeah.
still we still get weird connectivity issues, and it's just because the walls are all concrete. I should probably move that seedling light you've got right next to it a little further away.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just about done with seedlings once I get the garden planted.
Yeah, speaking of showing things off, let's see if I can. If it's too dark outside to show off my. Oops! I just realized I'm looking at the stream, so I'm delayed. I need to look at the camera.
That's
I don't
not
know if you
bad.
guys
A little
can
bit.
see. Can you see all of our window boxes that we put in
You'll be able to see them
Ooh,
better once I get our
that's
flowers in there.
all
But
the way across our balcony?
yeah.
So there's like 6 of them end to end above, and then we have like our bigger planters at the bottom. So we've
Yep.
got quite the space garden now on our 15-story.
You're up in the air.
That's quite nice. So yeah, we're gonna get quite a lot of. We just hit the garden center today, so picking up a lot of stuff. Get some more herbs, some more flowers.
I've got some succulents around me.
Nice.
This is the my wife and I have been like hopping locations where we live way too often for the past year. So it's now that we're like in a semi-permanent place, I'm finally investing in like little greenery things that make me happy. Oh, this is my favorite one. It's a little yucca plant, and it's
pretty.
saying you can do it, and I just think that's very sweet.
Nice.
Aww.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've enjoyed when we first started getting online to talk about the stream towards like our first stream and our second, and now you're like the view of your place there has just like gotten more home-like.
Yeah.
Step by step as you've unpacked and stopped moving all over the I was gonna say the continent, but the planet.
Yeah,
We're in Scotland recently, right?
We're not even on the
yeah.
continent.
We were in Scotland in August, and then when our visas ran out, because the visas were getting periodically renewed just by like no one could travel, so the government couldn't kick anyone out. So they were like
Oh, right.
announcing, okay, renewed to this date, renewed to this date, and then they stopped renewing them. So rather than try and figure out like how to get back to Canada safely, and Canada was in a bit of a COVID meltdown around then, we ended up moving to Italy for 3 months because you can do that without a visa.
Oh, cool.
And
Wow.
living in rural Italy we were in like rural Tuscany for a month, and then we were
awesome.
we were actually in Cinque Terre. Like normally it's like a really expensive, hard place to stay, but because
COVID.
like the Airbnbs were because it was emptied out and off tourist season, we just like lived in like an oceanside apartment, like waking up to the Ligurian Sea every morning for 2 months straight.
Gorgeous.
It was utter magic. And just living a very rural life. Like we would wash our clothes in the sink because the laundromat was closed for the season, and the Airbnb didn't have a washing machine, and that was like a really fun, beautiful way to spend a couple months. And then finally, the time that it would have been legal to stay in Italy without a visa was running out, and then we did actually have to fly back to Canada, and then it had gotten even worse for COVID. So our attempts to like delay a really long, unsafe flight to an unsafe place did not. It was no safer doing it in November, at the end of November. So then we were in Ontario for a bit, and then we ended up moving to Vancouver because of family health crisis, and then another family member needed like live-in care for a month, so we were living there for a bit, and so then we finally are like back in our place, but it just took. There's a lot of bouncing around before then.
Yeah.
Quite the God, like within a year, basically, right? Within the space of about a year.
Yeah, I mean, August till we didn't really stay here until like the beginning of April, and in that time we had 5 different mailing addresses.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Whee.
So it's a lot. It's a lot. But it's nice. It's nice to finally be like setting up a space properly. Like I want to do more streaming now because
it's a nice
it's
background.
Yeah, I like it. And this is a like full dedicated. Like we have a separate bedrooms. This is like mostly dedicated as an office. And like yesterday, I was trying to do box design for like the thing that's gonna. I make a thing called the story engine, which is like a card. It's a deck system for prompting stories. I just designed like a master box that would hold all the new expansions and the old expansions, and like having like instant access to like my little cutting machine and my corner rounder for rounding out cards to test them in the spaces, and like tape measures and tape and cardboard. Like having all the maker stuff that I want on hand to like just do like hands-on creative stuff was so nice. So I haven't had any like that's all been in storage for 6 months basically.
Oh, I saw the package design for the story engine stuff that you have already, and it looks amazing.
I'm really excited for the new stuff coming out, and the like people have been asking me for a master box almost constantly since the story engine came out, and I've been wanting to do one, but like designing an empty box is not the most exciting thing that I want to do. Like there were so many expansions that I was excited about, but finally I got around to doing it last week and trying to find something that would like honor the old packaging and be its own new thing. And I finally did it, and I sent it to the factory, and then they replied like yesterday, being like, "This is 1.75 centimeters too tall, so we're gonna have to make it by hand." And I was like, "Oh, come on! Like I cannot. Like it is to the centimeter the size that it needs to be to fit all the cards that I want to make and sleeved as well." So I'm
No.
gonna have to pay for these handmade master boxes, which I'd like to keep affordable. Like I'd like it to be an affordable storage option,
Yeah.
and not some like ridiculously frou-frou Kickstarter extra. Um, or I'm gonna have to make it a little bit smaller, in which case people can't fit all their cards sleeved, or possibly if I want to do a third generation of cards, might not be able to. But I'm going back and forth with them and getting the costing. But
Cool.
the point was not for me to complain about the packaging design and like the 1.75 centimeters. The point was to having like a creative like workshop space is really fun. That's been exciting. Good.
So, what are we doing here? Just a few more minutes, I think.
Yeah, it's been
Go for
an hour and a half. Just
Um,
checking our time.
I just discovered I didn't in fact miss one of the 7 races. I just wasn't counting well
Oh,
because I'm a biologist, so
math is not your
basic
strong suit.
math. Because yeah, it was human kind, beast kind, dragon kind, fey kind, stone kind, goblin kind, and then
Other.
the 7th,
Yeah.
the other kind or far walkers, as I was saying.
Cool.
And I don't know if I finished kind of explaining why I did that too, but I was saying how I don't like how in the trope of we're all um, unusual creatures, therefore everybody who encounters us is constantly going to be shocked and amazed. So the idea is simply to create a framework where beings in the in a D&D setting are used to this framework. That's basically what I was doing. So the idea is that no matter where the players go, no matter where our party of weirdos goes, they're not going to be that weird. People will be able to say, this person is a goblin kind. They're just an orc. There's lots of those, and I also deliberately tried to sort of mix up most of the places in the setting that people are. In Mud Hollow, for example, there's lots of turtles, and there's like because of this, there's a swamp nearby, and there's and lizard folk and other types, and there's a good mix. Um, I'm not, I know they've done this in some of the Forgotten Realms areas and in some of the other D&D worlds, but anywhere where they try and overly say this is the place where orcs are from and this is the place where humans are from, uh, starts opening cans of worms, right? Because you can start kind of getting into a bit of a, well, if this is where the humans are from, then everyone's racist against the players. Player characters are going to get constantly harassed for not being humans. Well, that's a little too close to home for reality. Let's try uh, to minimize how
Also,
what like a horrible place we can make the world.
our group is weird in other ways too, so they'll still be like, "Ugh, those guys," whenever we walk into town. But it's
Yeah, you're all
mostly because we stink.
crazy filth creatures.
Yeah.
But no one, no one, people are going to be like, that guy's crazy, but not, what are you? Yeah. So like, even if you guys go down to the, the southern jungles and the kingdom of like the Al Felicia, where the Loxodons rule things, there's still lots of not beast kind there. There's
Right.
still, we made it so there's a mix. There's not like, this is where the Tabaxi live and this is where the turtles live. It's very, the southern jungles have beast kind of all the different groups.
A
Yeah,
little more
not racism, but
cosmopolitan.
cleanism.
Yeah.
That's the Quaggles are like there's that socioeconomic thing. We already had that in our first session where Tromlin is very displeased that Otto was sneering at the filthy Quaggles.
Man, Rinkus, was that game 10 years ago? I ran a Shadowrun game for Rinkus 10 years ago, apparently. That feels like yesterday. But yeah,
Was that? I don't remember. I'm trying to remember what Shadowrun game that was.
it was
Was that?
the characters for my comic.
That was yeah. That was at an
Yeah.
expo, right?
I
That
think
was at
he
a
was the troll. He was Dustin's character.
yeah. It was like a one shot.
Yeah, that was fun.
Cool.
10 years ago, though, that doesn't seem. I mean, I know it's that long ago, but that seems wrong. The 10 years can pass. Seems fake.
Indeed. So do we want to wrap this up pretty quick here?
Yeah, just about bird bedtime. These birds will start getting loud.
That's what I'm thinking. For the chat, I am considering doing this regularly since we run Trash Heroes every other week. We were thinking of doing a Q&A hangout in between on the alternating weeks, if there's enough interest for it. So I think we've had like at least 10 people or so here for most of this.
Yeah. We should
And
not be
for
able
like
to.
a first time, that ain't bad.
Yeah.
So I'll maybe next week's game on the actual stream for Trash Heroes, I'll maybe ask and see if there is a significant interest in doing this more frequently and doing this every other week, and we can just Q&A and hang out.
Yeah. Chill, tell some gaming stories.
Indeed.
Tell some RPG horror stories.
RPG horror stories of like horror RPGs.
No,
Oh,
no.
I have some good
Or
ones
like
of those actually.
No,
either or both.
just horrible parties with horrible people. Usually, it's like one party member that is just like the one horrible person that somehow got through either without raising red flags into the party, and you find out on like session 3, like,
You're like,
oh no,
uh-oh.
yeah.
Yep.
Or occasionally, like, there's the little red flags, and then you only see like what they were hiding, what was being flagged later on. Those are the two types of stories that you tend to find there. But
I'll maybe end with a
yeah,
story about an actual horror game I played in that scared the hell out of me. It was a Unknown Armies game, and there was a thing in the game where the DM had brought in this character that could affect radio waves and lights. And so it was a really fun session. We had a great time. I got my backpack on. I was going to walk home, and the street lights started going off, like ahead of me. And then I got back to our apartment on Clarence Lane, and all of the lights in the building were off. Like there was a power outage or something, and I was like, "Oh no, oh no, it's real! Oh
This is
no!"
not good timing.
And you weren't home because you were working late, so I had to like sit in this dark apartment, being like, I'm dead. I'm gonna die now, I guess. Bye, everyone." I love a horror game that can creep me out that much.
Yeah, good horror. Like I've seen some really good horror and LARP too. Really good horror LARPs. One of my favorite LARPs to play one shots of are the Cthulhu Live games.
Oh yeah.
Um, I've seen some really creepy ass Cthulhu Live LARPs.
I was once tied to another another player's ass to be a. Were we a Shoggoth? I think
Yeah,
we
I
were a
think you guys were a
Shoggoth.
Shoggoth.
Yeah.
Because you had like tentacles in both directions, so you were
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
tied
And the
together
only way to
to be
keep
a
us from
weird.
separating out from under the costume was to tie us both together, butt to butt. And then we had to wait in the closet for an hour. It was fun.
And we're then very terrifying. So it's good stuff. But yeah, let's end it here and save some good stories for later.
Yeah.
We definitely have plenty, and we'll have sort of randomly different players from the stream will show up and hang out, and it'll be nice. And
There'll be birds and maybe dogs, and not
yeah,
at our house, but other people have dogs.
yeah, no dogs here. We're allergic.
Yep.
But that's okay. All right, folks. Thanks for coming. Hope to see you all next week, next Saturday for the next Trash Heroes stream.
Woo. May 8th. Why is it May already?
oh my gosh.
Don't tell me that.
I don't like it. I don't like time. Time scares me. All right. See you, everybody.
All right. Bye, everybody.
I'm going to end the stream.